So, hi, Cheryl. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Last time we would have been in Maryland together. And so, welcome to Mastering Miserable Moments. And I think it's so apropos that we're dealing with mastering miserable moments in the environment and the climate that the world finds itself. In hindsight, I'm saying to myself, I should have left off an S so that we just have a miserable moment, and not moments, because it's gone from one thing to the next. So welcome to the show. And before we get into all of that, let me just introduce the phenom that sits on the other side of the screen from me, because now that's our new reality. Cheryl is a motivational speaker. She's the founder of Vocalize Women Speakers Academy. She's a leadership expert. She has a doctor of philosophy. I can go on, Cheryl. And you have done so well, and you will tell your story, because they say that the hunter tells the story, but not quite like how the lion would tell it. So I want to get it from your vantage point as to who is Cheryl Wood and how it all fits into what we're dealing with in terms of mastering miserable moments. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate all of these platforms that I love, because they're serving other people, right? And I think that's the thing that all of us have to remember, is that your story is about you, but it ain't for you. And at the end of the day, doesn't matter what you've been through, if you just sit on it and you don't share with anybody else, who is it really helping? You just went through some stuff. But once you make the decision to share it, that's when it becomes its most powerful. So for me, I always like to share kind of a little bit of the personal and the professional. On the personal front, because my business is an extension of who I am as a person. On the personal front, I am a mother of 3 amazing kids. I have 2 sons and a daughter. I have a 12-year-old son, a 13-year-old, and then a 16-year-old daughter, who is my mini me. And I've been married. My husband and I just celebrated 13 years of marriage in April.
Congrats.
And we actually still like each other. Praise the Lord. So that's a beautiful thing. So they're in this journey with me. Yeah. On the professional side, yeah, like you said, a lot of what I do now is based on leadership. It's based on teaching women entrepreneurs how to unleash the power of their voice and their story, and how to stop leaving money on the table by not speaking as an added revenue stream, really a part of their business, regardless of what else they teach or what else they sell. Right. Speaking should be a part of it. How did I get here? Well, for 15 years, I sat in corporate America as a legal secretary, if you can believe that. Sometimes I can't believe it, because I'm like, everything about my spirit says, Cheryl, girl, you should be running your mouth and getting real paid, real well for it somewhere.
Real money.
But I think we do what we know how to do and what we're comfortable doing until we're willing to interrupt what's normal for us. Yeah. And that is intentional. Like that doesn't happen by accident. You have to be intentional about interrupting your norm so that you can experience something that you've never experienced before. So in 2009, which is when my entrepreneurial journey began, right, I was just tired. I was tired of being tired, of dropping my kids off at 6 o'clock every morning, a.m., and not picking them up until 6 p.m., which meant somebody else was raising my kids, because they saw more of my children than I did, 12 hours a day. By the time I got to them, I was bringing the people that I say I love the most, the worst parts of me. Right. So I brought home to my husband and my kids the grouchy, irritable, disappointed, not living in her purpose woman, instead of someone who was fulfilled and happy and could really add that much more value to their lives. And that just wasn't okay with me. Right. In 2009, I just made a decision. I don't want to live this life anymore. I don't want to be existing in life when I have the option to live life. Right. So I started a business in 2009. It was a t-shirt business, but then that culminated, and the tipping point for me where I really started going hard with my business was that in 2009 on Thanksgiving Day, my father passed away. Oh. So that was the first call I got on that morning. He was only 59, just to put things into context. But it was such a pivotal reminder that none of us are promised tomorrow. No. So you got to get to the point where you're like, okay, what am I doing with my today in case I don't get tomorrow to do it? Right. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, Cheryl, you're going to a job every day that, yes, pays you well, but your name is never going to be connected to their legacy. your name is never going to be on the outside of that law firm. Right. So what's the legacy that you're creating? And what is the path to generational wealth that you're creating? And that was never going to be achieved through me working to build somebody else's dream. I was going to have to take control of my own destiny and build my own dream. And so that literally is what kind of was the real tipping point. So I had already started my own t-shirt business. It was a mommy t-shirt business. All the slogans were about celebrating women and moms and all that we give to the world. And I would do that on the side because I still kept my job because I had bills. I don't know about y'all, but I had bills.
Right. You didn't want to pile on to the misery.
Come on. I still had to keep my full-time job. It wasn't leap and fly. No. Let me keep this job.
Yeah.
And so I did the business on the side on the weekends, and I would go to events and flea markets and conferences and trade shows, and I would try to sell these t-shirts. And I did that for 18 months straight.
Wow.
And 18 months later was when I got the phone call that shifted the trajectory of who I was becoming, that's so important because people need to understand the importance of just getting started.
Right.
Because when you just get started, even without knowing the how, you don't have a master blueprint of how it's going to play out. Mm-hmm. If you are in movement and in motion, things will happen. Doors will open. Opportunities will become available to you. Relationships will be developed that will allow you to discover how you're going to become whoever you're destined to become. So, so 18 months later, you guys, I get this phone call one day from someone who says on the other end, Cheryl Wood, this is XYZ from Morgan State University up in Baltimore, because I was born and raised in Baltimore.
Right.
And they said, hey, look, we heard about your t-shirt business. Wait, stop the presses right there. They heard about my t-shirt business. Right. Why did they hear about my t-shirt business? Because I just got started right where I was, and because I was consistently showing up.
Yeah.
So they said, well, we have this annual women's conference, and we would love for you to come to the conference and speak to other women and other moms in Baltimore to teach them how to start their own business. Right. And I said, you know what I did, y'all? I burst out laughing. I was like, you are not looking for me. You done dialed the wrong number.
Right.
I thought they dialed the wrong number because I wasn't a speaker. I had no qualifications. Check that word out. I wasn't qualified as a speaker, had never been on stage. So why would they be calling me was my first thought process.
Right.
That's why I share with every person that I serve now, stop focusing on being qualified and focus on being called.
Well, let me just put a pin right there, because
put a pin, yes.
Qualifications based on what though? And based on whose idea of qualifications? Because I mean, aren't we, when we come here, and when I say here, I mean on planet Earth, we come equipped.
Yes.
And it's just now to pull that gifting and that qualification out of us. So I'm glad, that you may have laughed a bit like Sarah when they told her that she'd have a baby at, in her 90s.
Yes.
But you still held on to the promise and, from a t-shirt business. Now I hear in all of these steps, I hear misery. I hear rejection. I hear at some point believing, how long can I go on? So I hear you going through your miserable moments. So let the story continue so that I can hear how you move from the misery to the mastery.
Look, and that was just in year 1. We didn't even get to years 2 through 10. So it's a journey. It is a journey. Yeah. So when they invited me to come and speak, like you said, it was about knowing that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Yes. It's about knowing that you don't need to seek anybody else's validation or permission to be enough to move in your purpose, and to understand that you already came stamped as pre-approved by a higher source.
Yes.
So I had to dig deep into finding that and understand that I had been called for a time such as that to be able to share my voice. And that's when you owe it to yourself to say yes more than you say no. Like sometimes we're taught as women the power of our no, and we got to tell people no. Sometimes your most power, your greatest power is in your yes. Wow. And so I said yes in that moment to doing something I had never done before that I was uncomfortable with. Like when I said yes and I showed up that day, my heart was pounding, my palms were sweating. I was like, oh my God, I should have said yes.
What did I do?
No. Right. What did I do? Talk about miserable moments. I was miserable. I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. I'm scared. It was terrible. And finally I regrouped. I said a prayer and I just got on the stage and I was like, Cheryl, just be you.
Yeah.
Just be authentically you. You've prepared, you've practiced, that's all you can do. And it was on that day, it was September 18th, 2010, that I discovered I was born to speak. Like that was my God-given gift. That was going to be my assignment in the world, speaking into the lives of others. And yes, it would come with a lot of miserable moments. It would come with a lot of turmoil and setbacks and challenges. But it was going to be worth it. So September 18th, 2010 was the kickoff of this Dr. Cheryl that you're talking to today.
That's almost 10 years ago.
Yes.
Almost a decade.
Yep.
Wow, that is really something. Now, I know that you have a saying that says playtime is over. Where did that come from? And you know, what caused you for this to become almost your tagline?
Yeah, it's so funny. A lot of the stuff that I'll put out into social media or that I'll turn into a conference or a book, it's stuff I'm telling myself. So playtime is over. It started with self-talk. Because I remember one day I was sitting at my computer, and this was after I had left my full-time job. So this was kind of down the road a little ways. Right. And I was sitting there, and my money wasn't matching my level of service in the world. Talk about a miserable moment. When your bank account is not reflective of how much service you're giving in the world, something's wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I was sitting at my computer, and I found myself scrolling. I was scrolling like on social media, and I finally like snapped out of it. I was like, girl, what are you doing? This is not a revenue generating activity. You better get it together. Playtime is over. That was me talking to Cheryl.
Wow.
I wasn't even talking to anybody else. And then I just was moved, I believe divinely moved, to post that on social media. And I was like, y'all, playtime is over. We got to get moving and stop scrolling. And it just became a movement all of its own. So sometimes you're given divine downloads, and I think that's what that was. It was a divine download.
For that particular moment.
Yes.
Now, a lot is going on in the world. First, we got COVID that just, touched us, not only socially, because as human beings, as women, we like to interact with, each other. That was shut down. It affected us economically, and we haven't seen, the full extent of that as yet, because businesses were closed and shuttered. How did you make it through this particular moment? Maybe you never even stopped because you had already prepared. It's almost, we're in the Bahamas, we're in the hurricane season. So we hurricane proof for June and November. So tell me, was it a miserable moment, or did you hurricane proof?
I would say that would be two parts. So I had started to hurricane proof, because here's what I know: success always leaves clues. And one of the things that I believe in is following the people who are already 30 steps ahead of me and watching what they're doing, because their success is leaving breadcrumbs for me to know, how do I need to shift and pivot. So I had already started going to a lot of digital and virtual platforms probably about a year ago. I hadn't probably executed it to the level that I am now, but it was already in place. So it wasn't new for me to get on and do a webinar. It wasn't new for me to get on and do a Zoom session or get and do Facebook Live and teach people that way. That wasn't new. I was already doing that because success had left those clues. I think the part that was, for me, the part that allowed me to really dig my heels in deeper is that normally, when we're not in COVID-19, I'm on a plane, a train, a car, an automobile, somewhere, speaking, headed to speak, coming back from speaking. Movement. So I normally don't have time to create at the level that I'm creating now. That was, for me, that's been massive. When I tell you I've been creating somebody, I have been creating and producing and contributing. And I mean, I feel like when I first started in business, that's the energy I have again, because I understand that people who have a voice and have been given that as a gift, this is the time that you need to be using that voice. So this is not the time to self-quarantine. This is not the time to pull back and sit quietly. This is the time to come to the front of the room, whether you want to or not, whether you feel qualified or not. This is the time that you've been birthed for. So I took that very seriously in COVID. And I'm like, people are looking for hope. They're looking for inspiration and empowerment. They're looking for, how do I increase and enhance my skill set? And so anything that you were doing, that you were teaching, pretty much can be brought online. So why not do that? So that's exactly what I've been doing.
I just love that analogy, because, they say that when you want to show off diamonds or gold, you use a backdrop of black. And so persons may see this as darkness, but it really enhances the giftings and all of that is necessary for this time, and this season of our lives. And now, so we had the COVID, and then we have the incidents that are going on in the United States, and it's so unfortunate. And even though it is the United States and we don't live in the United States, we also feel it as a part of the Black diaspora around the world. So tell us, how has that impacted you? Because of course it is a very miserable moment in not just the history of Black America, but in the history of America as a great nation, as a leader of nations around the world. So tell us, how are you dealing with that as a Black woman, as a woman, and just basically as a person? How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, I mean, our hearts are so heavy right now. I mean, I'm a mother to 2 Black boys who are going to grow up in this society with racial injustice. I have a Black husband who sometimes doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. And I'm like, look here, if you get pulled over, please be quiet and come home. Like, that's what we need, you to come home. Yeah. So we're having to have those conversations, and our hearts are very heavy for what we saw, all of us witnessed with our own eyes that happened to George Floyd and some of the other injustices. I think for me, this ain't new. Yes. Let me just say that this is not new. So this is not the first time we've seen injustice. This is not the first time we're experiencing racism. 30 years ago, I can't even believe I'm saying that. 30 years ago, which means I was like 16 when the whole incident with Rodney King happened. That was 30 years ago, and we're still seeing the same thing. So I think for me, it is an acknowledgement that this is not new. There's still a systemic problem. And we have to, number one, have prayer as our foundation, and then decide what we're going to do on top of prayer. If you're going to march, then march. If you're going to become a person who is involved in legislation, then make that your cause. Whatever it is that you feel is going to be your contribution to bettering the problem, then do it. But here's what I say: don't get distracted from your divine assignment. That's my thing. I think a lot of us get so heavy into some of the things that we can't control right now because George Floyd is gone. Right. He's gone. All the people who have experienced these injustices are gone. And now we can try to make things better. But again, it's a systemic problem, which is going to take time. But here's what I need you to do. You can feel the heaviness. You can give yourself permission to not be okay for a certain amount of time. And then you got to get back to business, meaning get back to the business of walking in your divine purpose. Because just like his tomorrow wasn't promised, yours isn't either. Right. So what are you doing with your gifting? Are you creating your legacy? Are you staying focused, laser focused on how you're meant to touch and impact other people's lives? That's how I'm getting through it. It's by keeping my energy high, acknowledging that there is a systemic problem and that it's not going to go away tomorrow. It's probably not going to go away for the next however many years, but we can slowly but surely work through a process to try to change things to make it that way, but to stay laser focused on how do I serve the world in a bigger way as a Black woman using my voice and my gifts so that I don't regret if my tomorrow doesn't come. That's how I'm staying inspired to keep doing the work that I do.
Yeah, so it sounds like when you get up, you know you have 86,400 seconds.
That's it.
You're going to make every one of those tick on that clock. You're going to make that work for the better of what you have to do. Because, you know, we had a friend, Dr. Miles Monroe, and his whole thing was to die empty so that he would rob the grave of everything, that he would master every moment so that when that time comes, because we all know that that time will come one way or the other, whether peaceful or not, it will come. And the whole thing is, what is the legacy that you leave behind? Because, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King, he said that it's the ultimate measure, not just the measure, but the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort, but in times of controversy, as we would say with the British, or controversy, you know. And so what do we say to ourselves as we stand in these moments? What then is supposed to be the ultimate measure of us as men? These persons have gone before, because, you know, it doesn't start, like you say, with the George Floyd. There's so many that have gone before him. I mean, even Dr. Martin Luther King himself, who gave his everything, his all, his life for this whole thing to be right, for us not to have to be facing this today, but we are facing it. And so I noticed that throughout your stories that there's a pivot. There's a pivot. Now, usually around pivoting, there's fear. And that is something that has to be mastered, because fear can kill you. It can strangle you. How do you get beyond the fear?
Oh my, how much time we got? It's real. And I know that the whole like acronym of false evidence appearing as real, but it feels real to you in the moment when you're facing the fear, right? So even when I got started on this journey, because of my past, I had all this talk that was going on in my own mind about who I wasn't, who I couldn't be, you know, and then I had other people's garbage on top of my own garbage telling me who I couldn't be because of the things that I lacked. So I grew up in poverty. I didn't come from, as they say, the right side of the tracks. My daddy suffered from alcoholism. My mom raised 3 kids as a single parent. We were on government assistance because my mother, who worked every day, just didn't make enough money to put food on the table. So we had to be on food stamps, which I used to hate as a kid. And I used to wonder, how is it that my mother is one of the hardest working women I know? She never takes a day off. She goes to work every day. She was the manager of a school cafeteria for Baltimore City Public Schools for 25 years. Why is it that we don't have enough money? I just couldn't grasp that.
Yeah.
And so I grew up from that. And then I graduated high school and went straight into the workforce. I didn't go to college. I didn't go for 4 years of higher learning because I just wanted to get out of poverty. So I equated getting out of poverty with get a job and make some money. So now I have all the craziness that happened in my past as a child on top of me. Then I have the idea that the world is now telling me I'm not good enough because I don't have a degree. I don't have enough letters behind my name. Then I get in corporate America and land a job as a legal secretary, which paid me decent money considering where I came from, right? And then they were telling me I wasn't enough to move beyond that position because of what I was lacking. When you have everybody constantly telling you you're not enough, you start to believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you start to have all these fears that if I do jump out and do this business, if I decide to get on stages, if I decide to write the book, or is anybody going to show up and support it?
Yeah.
Is anybody going to believe in it? Then you have imposter syndrome. Now you're dealing with that. So fear is the real thing that you face. And for me, what I had to do was become intentional about disconnecting the conversation that fear was having me. Yeah. Like literally, like you unplug something. I had to unplug from that dialogue and create a new dialogue so that my subconscious mind could believe something new. So I had to shift my own narrative, like get out of the messy, miserable moments that I was having with myself in conversation.
Right.
And have a new conversation.
Right.
And the new conversation was, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are enough. You are capable. You are worthy just as you are. No one can stop you from who you're destined to be. It's not about where you come from. It's about where you're going. And I started feeding my mind that every single day, every minute of every day. And what happens with the subconscious mind is it starts to take over and believe whatever it is that you tell it consistently.
Yeah.
So if I'm telling myself I'm good enough consistently, I'm going to have the strength to face the fears that are trying to stop me in my track from being great.
I agree with that because someone once said that I think I am who you think I am. So first of all, we have to get rid of what people say what we are and then come to the realization of knowing exactly who you are. I can tell you because I am from a family, my mother had 16 children.
Wow.
Okay? I guess there was no television back then.
No.
And so, you know, so you come from that and I'm the last of I'm number 16.
Wow.
And so, you know, you go through all of this. And then the thing about that, once you get over, I think I am who you think I am, then you have to talk to yourself because it's amazing what the conversation is in your head.
Yep.
Sometimes we are our own worst enemies. And I think if we take the conscious decision to sometimes listen to what we're saying to ourselves in moments of fear, in moments of when we're not certain about the next step, it's amazing. If you write down every thought that you have about yourself, it is just crazy and critical.
Yeah, so, and surround yourself with other people who see more greatness than you see in yourself initially. So when I started my journey, there were some people who God sent, I mean, literally it was divinely orchestrated to me, relationships where the way they viewed me was more powerful than how I viewed myself.
Yes.
So that can be a two-way street, right? So if you're around the right company and if you're around wise counsel who's reminding you of the greatness that they see, like, you know, let me show you what I see. Because here's the thing, we can't be the picture and the frame. You can't be the picture and the frame. So you need someone who's external, who is seeing the greatness in you that you don't see yet, reminding you constantly in your ear. And I was blessed to have that at the beginning of my journey, which reminded me, okay, maybe I can. And I would stand up a little bit taller, but like, okay, all right, maybe I can, maybe I do have this. Maybe I can do this. And that is why I'm still standing today.
Right. So affirmation is really important. And I guess a sisterhood and just a village. And we have lost so much of the village throughout the course of time. In the Bahamas, I know, you know, we were like, if I don't have any sugar, I can come next door and borrow a cup of sugar or a cup of flour. You know, we don't know our neighbors anymore. And for the most part, that's how we've moved through civilizations. but I noticed that you are now empowering women to unleash not just their voice, but the power of their voice. Tell me how you came to put that together, because I don't think words are just meaningless. In fact, when the world was created, it was spoken into existence. God didn't do anything. He didn't fashion anything. He said, let there be. So here you are, that you are now empowering women to, and I just love the force of that word unleash, because that's not just to reveal. Reveal is soft.
Yes.
Those are some real powerful words. Tell me how you got to putting that together, and what does that consist of?
Yeah, I love that, because that word is just, it is powerful. And it reminds me of the tenacity of my spirit that I have when I think about unleashing. I've had to be tenacious. I've had to be like forthcoming. And there's a quote that I live by: you don't get what you deserve, you only get what you demand. It is me demanding that the world pay attention to who I am and my impact on other people's lives. Like, nobody's going to drop that in my lap. So when I talk about unleashing the power of your voice, it's about finding the greatness that you are sitting on that somebody else is waiting on. Yeah. So every one of us have been through life experiences that have shifted us and shaped us and transformed us. But if you just sit on it and you don't tell nobody, you don't share it, guess what it is? You just went through some mess. You just went through some miserable moments. But once you decide, oh, I'm going to share it with somebody else, now all the hurt, check this out, all the hurt that you've been hoarding now becomes a blueprint for somebody else's healing. So you are sitting, when we talk about unleashing your voice, it's unleashing all of that healing that somebody else somewhere in the world is waiting on. And they are only going to get it when you open your mouth, when you are vulnerable enough and transparent enough to share your experiences, so that they know, number one, they're not alone. Right. Number two, that they know that they can get through it because you got through it and you're still standing. That is where our power lies as women.
Yeah, I love those words, vulnerable and transparent.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us hide behind so many things, and the picture perfect image, because, you have to fight against the power and looking arrogant, or, you get called many names, some not very complimentary, when you are a powerful woman, when you're strong. So if someone was to listen to this and say, listen, my misery isn't so much that I am an underdog. I am an alpha, and I am having this misery because I am not accepted for the fact that I am a strong person, that I am a strong woman. What would you say to that woman, to that person?
You need a new circle. Like literally, your front row of people needs to change immediately, ASAP.
Go to the balcony then.
Look, because here's the reality. You did not give yourself the gift that you have. Can we just be real? I did not give myself the gift of being a great orator. You did not give yourself the gift that you had. So whenever you use the gift and you speak up on the gift, whatever the thing is, you are bragging on God. And if you are around people who do not want you to brag on God, you are in the wrong circle of association. And so I would say, be intentional about elevating as you elevate, like elevate the people that are around you. Always take an inventory of who's sitting on that front row, because some of them do not need to be on that front row. My mama told me this: Cheryl, don't ever go where you are tolerated, go where you are celebrated and accelerated. Those two things. You got to celebrate me and accelerate me, helping me to go to higher heights. Not, oh, you're tolerating me, but you really want me to be quiet. No. I'm always going to be the loudest voice in the room when it comes to bragging on God. And if you can't deal with that, you don't belong in my circle.
Right. Whenever you see a woman says, no, you know she means business. This is just not one no. I am really serious. I'm really serious about what I'm saying. And so can you share with us then, in the spirit of being vulnerable, in the spirit of being transparent, what would have been, in your estimation, your most miserable moment, and how did you overcome that?
There's so many, but I'll pick one. I would say when I finally got the courage and the boldness to walk away from my corporate job to pursue entrepreneurship full time, it was hard, because I was used to getting direct deposit every 2 weeks, and that's a beautiful thing, right?
Definitely, definitely.
And so I finally got the courage after I had talked to myself for so long, like, okay, you are enough, you are capable, you're worthy, you can make this money back in your own business. Finally walked away from that. 6 months later, my husband got laid off from his job. And so we were 2 grown folk with 3 kids in the house looking at each other, talking about how we gonna feed these babies.
Right.
And that was probably the most miserable moment in my journey, because I remember like literally being curled up in a fetal position, crying my eyes out, saying, God, really? Like, I thought this is what I really believed in my spirit. This is what I was supposed to be doing. But if I was supposed to be doing it, this wouldn't be happening. I was having that, like, sometimes you debate with God.
Of course.
God, like, look, chick, I'm about to show you. If you just be quiet and stop leaning on your own understanding, I'm about to show you what I'm going to do for you and in your life and for other people. But in that moment of desperation, I just felt like, wow, I'm chasing some dream. That's literally the words that came out of my mouth. I can't believe I'm chasing some dream, not even realizing that dream was my legacy.
Wow.
And transformation for other people globally. But I'm chasing some dream and can't even feed my kids. I will never forget saying that. And my husband, who is a man of few words, who normally doesn't feed into my mess, opened his mouth. And that's how I know it was divine. And he said, oh, no. You will not quit now.
Ooh.
You've come this far. I'm not going to cry. He was like, you will not quit now. Somebody in this household is going to live their dream.
Wow.
And in that moment, I could hear God speaking through him, a man who typically don't say nothing in terms of my business or nothing like that. He was my saving grace that day for God to give me the energy I needed to get rebooted and re-energized, to stick with it, even when it was tough. So we literally in that space hit rock bottom financially. But I believe that sometimes you got to hit rock bottom for God to build you up to the level of elevation of where you're supposed to be. And if you don't ever hit rock bottom, how can you ever have empathy for other people who go through while they're on their journey? So every part of the journey it's a reason for it, and it's a reason why you're going through it.
Exactly. And I love that. So would you believe now that we've been on this call for more than we said we would be? So I would want you to have really the final words on this program today, Cheryl. And this is somebody that has hit rock bottom. They just came across this program. And, we always think, oh, just by coincidence, but there are no coincidences. There are only God incidences.
Yeah.
What would you want them to hear from someone who's been there, done that, bought a t-shirt, a cap, probably a return ticket? What is the final message to them, that the saving grace, like you said, that your husband was your saving grace? Yeah. What is the lifeline that you would leave for someone today?
I would say simply, don't quit before your blessing shows up. Wow. I promise you, your name has already been engraved on blessings that are just waiting on you to show up.
Wow.
So if you quit now, if you don't stick with it, you don't get to go and claim the blessings that God has engraved your name on. And nobody, here's the beautiful thing about engraving, nobody can come with their ink pen and cross it out and say, no, I'm gonna put my name here. Nobody can come with a pencil and try to erase it out. God has your name engraved, indelibly engraved on blessings, but you can't even get the blessing if you quit now. So I need you to keep showing up in power, understanding that everything you're going through right now is meant for a purpose and a reason. It is a lesson learned. It is information learned that will make you more valuable to the people that God is calling you to be speaking to speak into, and to serve. So do not quit. If nothing else, find a new way, try a new strategy, call somebody who can speak into your life, speak into your own life, reaffirm yourself, but do not quit before you get to those engraved blessings.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful. And like your name denotes, Cheryl is dear one or princess.
Hey!
Yeah, that's what your name means. And so it was really a pleasure. I look forward to, once again, that I can see you face to face.
Yes.
But I am so happy for your successes. I pray God's continued blessings. The doors will open, that you will overflow, and that you would need about 3 sauces to 1 teacup. to contain.
I receive that. I receive it. And look, I receive that. I receive it. I receive it. Like I've been doing the planting for years, and God always says, you reap what you sow. Definitely. So amen for him giving me the extra supernatural strength to keep planting so that I could get to this place of harvest.
Yes. Well, with that, I mean, I don't think there's anything left to be said. God's blessing on you, and hopefully see you soon. Stay safe.
Yes. Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you. Love you, ladies.
Okay. Bye.